You could have heard this episode 1 week early on our Patreon, patreon.com/indieheadspodcast. By joining us for as low as $1 a month, you receive episodes early and access to our Discord server. All of our upcoming mainland episodes go up on our Patreon $4 for hits our public podcast feeds, but for FYC, it is 1 week early. But if you're hitting this through our Patreon feed, we thank you so much for your support. We especially want to thank our Real Ones patrons, including Beck Etienne, Georgia Mikowski, James Boss, Holiday Kirk, Tyler, Marcy Anime, Chance Holdup, Delaney Mothman, Josiah Duncan, Jenna, Matt Cameron, Grant in the Back of My Dracula, Pablo Escobar's Hippos, Jackson Christ, Jeremy Bull, JP, Matthew Taylor, Breen Hare, Drew Wharton, I Like Books, Sarah Moore, Max Kapazinski, Mark Barry, Cal 50, the Pee Pee Poo Poo Fairy, Chris Wade, Midwest Maxwell, Kevin John, Jake Wald, Keep Autism Weird, Rob Marino, Max, Dylan, Zach, Gavin 490 Freak, and Maze Farms. To become a real one, consider supporting us for $5 a month on Patreon. Receive a bonus episode every month and get a shout out at the top of the pod. Anyways, though, enjoy the episode. Hello everybody, welcome to the Indie Heads Podcast FYC for your consideration series. This is a special episode because usually when we do this episode, we usually serve just two podcast members talking shop on a new record, but it's just me, and this one's gonna be a little different because we actually have one of the band members talking with us today. Isaac, welcome back to the pod.
What's going on? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, before we begin, I just want to sincerely apologize for the Five Morons versus Maroon 5 episode that we did with you and Shamir.
Oh no, dude, that was fun. I was totally good with that. Don't even sweat.
We threw you in the deep end on that one. It's not the first time where we kind of had like an end of series episode where we just threw someone who was unfamiliar with our whole deal into the deep end.
No,
Shamir probably should have prepped you better on that one, but
no, you don't even worry.
Hopefully you had fun on that. But
I did.
I
had a nice time.
That's good to hear. I guess kind of to start off with this, pure music again. I just want to talk about how much I love this record. I think this record, No Light in Heaven, I think you guys are just doing like it's crazy because I saw you guys in, let's see, I think 2019 on the Joyce Manor tour in Columbia,
cool.
Missouri. And at the time I was like, yeah, this is a pretty good band. Like I really like Leona, a couple good songs. And then No Light in Heaven came out and I was like, holy shit, this is Strange Ranger? Like this is the band that this does not sound like the Strange Ranger that I remember seeing like 2 years ago. And then since then, just kind of falling more in love with your guys' discography and kind of seeing like how all the pieces came together. So I guess if we're kind of talking pieces coming together, like this album and especially the last one too are like really heavily influenced by electronic music. So like what's like the first like electronic music album or like show you went to where like everything kind of clicked? You're like, oh, like I now have this desire, like I want to explore this genre. I want to explore like what I can do with it.
God, I don't know. I don't know how embarrassing to get with it. Basically.
Go for it. This is an embarrassment free zone.
Well, no, but it's gonna be embarrassing for me. Because I'm not like I didn't grow up listening to that. Like I just grew up listening to like Neil Young, Modest Mouse, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? Fuck it, dude.
Go for it.
I don't know if it's gonna like sabotage my whole shit. Basically, like I think I was getting really sick of indie rock for sure in like 2017, and I feel like we started listening to kind of more like Manchester like stuff like Primal Scream and
like Happy Mondays, like all the Manchester stuff.
Yeah, I didn't actually know them, but and then stuff like what's that song called, the phone booth song with like the BB King sample.
Something got
baby. I've been downhearted, baby. Ever since the day we left. Like it's not Moby, but it's like that shit.
Yeah.
Basically, so like I was getting into like sample-y type stuff, but I didn't know how to do any of it. Oh, this is like so fucking lame. I can't believe this. But anyway, I saw. Okay, anyway, 2017, I go to see Good Time in theaters.
I mean, that's
and
a
I
great
was
movie.
and I was like, damn, this is insane. When and then just when the last song drops in the last scene, I was just very moved by it. And it's funny, I went to like go pee after the movie, and while I was peeing I sort of just like had an emotional breakdown, and I was like, this is that, like, I just couldn't believe it. And because before that, all the art I liked was like very like epic in scope, and
Hmm.
I that, like I liked like Paul Thomas Anderson and like these like and the Lone Cut Out West, and like, I mean, I don't know, I was into like David Foster Wallace and shit. Like everything
Yeah,
was like
yeah.
these kind of like maximalist things, and that movie and the music is so focused and concise, and I had never, I mean, I guess I'd probably like heard like Tangerine Dream and shit and like movies that I'd seen, but I had never connected with like purely electronic instrumental music in that way. And then having that the Iggy Pop song at the end to
Hmm.
kind of like anchor it in traditional songwriting. So that really kind of um blew me away. And then I got into Replica, um of his 2011 album, I think,
Yeah.
OPN. And I was just obsessed with it, and I didn't know how to do any of it or anything, but I was just like, this is so beautiful. And um I remember hearing riding a bus in Portland. um I was probably like 24 or something, and that first song on Replica with like the vocal pads, just listening to it and being like, whoa, this is like something has changed in my in my life. Like, this is because when you hear music and you don't know how to make it, you hear it in a totally different way.
Yeah.
um and there's no context for any of it, and you can't imagine what like button is being pushed that's like generating this sound. And it's the same before you start writing songs. Like, you're just like
Hmm.
listening to like a rock song, you're like, this is crazy, like this is like magic. But I hadn't had that feeling in a while. And yeah, I just remember riding the bus and hearing this song and being like, I never would have liked this. Like, I remember explicitly being like, I don't fucking care about electronic music, because like in my head I can't picture it being made. Like, it doesn't sound physical to me in the way that rock music does, because there
Hmm.
isn't a physicality to it. Like, it's purely just sound, which is of course what's so cool about it. But I just remember yeah, listening to it and being like, damn, things are like different. Like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna and then I don't know. And then like I feel like around that time other shit was coming out. Like maybe a while later, that at some point that Safe in the Hands of Love Eve Tumor album came out.
Yeah.
Um and that really like that was a really big record for me. And then of course, I mean, because once you're into that shit, it's like, oh, it's like Aphex Twin is awesome, like duh, like Brian Eno is awesome, duh. I got into like Huerco S and shit, just like, it's
Yeah.
just like a whole world of music, and then like dance music and all that stuff came from that. But I feel like that was the sort of moment that I was just like, damn, this is like different.
I mean, one of Tricks, he was one of the first like electronic artists that I got into, and I was just like, because I think I heard she off of R+7 for the first time. I was like, what the, like how is this being done?
That
Like
record is so good. Yeah.
I mean R+7, like I get all the Replica fans. I get, like, for me, it's like R+7, like that's the one for me. Although
Yeah, I mean,
I do love
that's like
many of his records.
that's probably my second favorite one. I mean, Chrome Country is just like that song is sort of the perfect expression of like that era of his style, where because
Hmm.
it's funny, because I was talking to my friend about this one time. Like, we were talking about like modern music, and every era of music has these kind of like aesthetic markers. Like, it's like the 80s sounds like this, there's like all this reverb and bullshit. Like the 90s are like this, it's kind of like, I don't know, but like, you can, like, a lot of it
Yeah,
you can't
yeah,
really describe, but it is. And we were talking about like what now is going to sound like, and he's like, I think it's just going to be like a bunch of like sound effects, and you're like, why are these fucking sound effects in this song? And I think that there is a lot of that, which sucks. But a song like Chrome Country is like really using the form of like computer music to be beautiful, and it
hmm
doesn't feel like it's just trying to impress you.
yeah.
Like, so much like modern electronic production feels the way like shredding guitar feels to me, like Steve Vai or something, where it's like, what is the goal of this? Like, Um,
Like, what
it
emotion are we trying to get at here? Are we just
yeah,
shredding for the sake of it? Or are we like actually trying
totally.
to get at some kind of emotion? I think that's what OPM's like
Yeah,
really good at. It's just like
yeah,
he's able to express emotions in the music that I think like are really difficult for other producers to do.
definitely.
To
And
have
I
these
feel
like
like that,
very
yeah. And no, I totally agree. And that song, like just the sound design is so wild and immersive, and it only intensifies the beauty of the song, and yeah. So R+7 rocks, obviously.
yeah. So was it sort of like just you getting more in electronic music, or was it sort of like the band kind of collectively kind of digging more into this music as sort of time went on?
I think I was definitely like I was just getting really into it, and then I started talking about it a lot, and like I didn't want to listen to anything else, and so everybody was like, I think checking it out too, and then yeah, we all got into it basically.
Yeah, because I was gonna ask you like how hard was it sort of to pitch the band like, hey, this is sort of what I want to do with like these next two records. Like I want to go more in this direction. Were they like all for it, or was it sort of
I
like
don't really remember. I feel like there were some sessions like where we were kind of jamming on the songs that I've been writing, and like I had a synth in it. It just like was not working. But then because I think we were still too kind of anchored to the forms we had been using.
mhm.
But I think then we kind of figured out ways to integrate this stuff in a sort of a genuine way that didn't feel like a series of half measures, but was like fully like we're just making music in a new way now.
Yeah. Because I think, like, for some people, like, it's a big, the direction you guys have gone in has been sort of like a big surprise. But, like, there is some precursors. Like, there's some stuff on Remembering the Rockets, like, especially like Message to You, that I don't think would sound like too out of place
Definitely.
on pure music.
Yeah, 100%. Like I feel like the germs of it were there because I mean because we made that in 2018,
Yeah.
and so all this shit was I got obsessed with the shit before we made that record, but so we sort of like our friend Dylan Howe, who's like a really sick electronic musician. He kind of helped us with shit, and he was honestly big for me, like in terms of
Hmm.
just I remember going to his apartment and there just being like tons of gear, and I was like this, and he's like unplugging shit, plugging shit in. I was like, this is so crazy. Like, um, just it's such a different way of making music, and I just had because even with like guitar stuff, like I never gave a shit about gear really. Like, not that I'm like a gearhead or anything now, but
Hmm.
I that was so outside of my like interest. So, but yeah. So I guess back to your question, like, there's definitely like, yeah, we were trying to do it, but I really didn't know how to
Hmm.
at the time. So yeah,
Because, yeah, I feel like No Light in Heaven, I think doing that first was like, beyond the fact that I think that record is incredible, like it feels like okay, it was smart to call that like okay, this is a mixtape. Like we're trying this stuff out, we're seeing what works, what
yeah,
doesn't work. We're
yeah,
kind of giving you a little bit of like everything of where this band's at, because like you have something more like In Hell, which is just this like industrial, like like complete whiplash from the last record, and then you have something like
yeah,
Demolish, which is this like super incredible, like very like noisy power pop esque like
yeah,
track, and then obviously stuff like Cheap Returns, which are like very towards the end like very like indebted to like house music and whatnot.
yeah.
And then sort of like It's You, where I feel like that's like okay, like we've kind of figured out, like it feels like in real time you guys are figuring out like how we can integrate this into our music, and then it just perfectly leads into like pure music. Like I feel like
Thanks,
that the
thanks.
record, it feels like the ultimate culmination of like everything you've done. Like I do feel like I definitely talked to a couple of my friends that were fans of Remembering the Rockets and being like, yeah, No Light in Heaven, like that was sort of a tough one for me. But like
Yeah,
Pyramid's
for
like, oh
sure.
yeah, the singles are great. Like it feels like they kind of,
That's cool.
have it locked in.
That's sick.
Um,
That's nice to hear.
and in general, it feels like this record and like there's a couple others have come out around the same time period. Like last year, I think you're a fan of this record also, because I was talking with Chris about this. The
Who's
Pendant
Chris?
record, Harp.
Oh yeah. Oh, Chris is great. Yeah.
And then like this, and a little bit like to a lesser extent, like Making a Door Less Open, the Carsey Headrest record from 2020, where it kind of feels like
I've
we're
honestly
seeing.
never listened to them.
I mean, it's one of those things where like with that band in particular, like their moment has kind of passed. Like they're still big, but it's one of those things where like if you didn't get into them like in that time period, like 2015, 2018, 2019, it's definitely like a tougher sell than it was just because the landscape has
Okay.
changed so much. But I do think like Teens of
Yeah.
Denial and Twin Fantasy and Making Doors Open, like those are great records. Um,
I remember
but
my only experience with car seat headrest was in like 20. I had this like kind of like tick um I don't know what with this person in like 2015, and we were just like hanging out all night and like listening to music, and like car it was like and car seat headrest came on, but before they like exploded, maybe it was
yeah,
2014, I don't know. And like I was like, oh, this is like cool. um and we were listening to it a ton, and then I tried to listen to it another time. I was like, I don't like this, but I don't know. I don't know, but like it's like I couldn't find the stuff that was playing, maybe, or I don't know.
hmm
Like I don't know what it was, because they had that like super early like lo-fi stuff, right? And then it kind of
yeah.
got more. Yeah, so I think that's maybe what was coming on, but I couldn't remember.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely like it's because some of those early things, like I had more tolerance for it when I was younger, but like if I try going back, like now, I'm like this just sounds awful. Like I can't,
Yeah.
like I love lo-fi music, but like there's some to some extent, just like I just like they did it better later on. Like I just can't go back to this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I guess that was going to lead me sort of. It feels like we're seeing this like micro trend of sorts of like these indie rock lifers sort of making the transition to dance music, and like what like I'm curious of your take on it and like why you think like so many people that were coming up in like rock music before are now kind of starting to take like greater influence in electronic music. Like in some ways it feels like history repeating itself, in some ways going from like sort of the post-punk to new wave stuff, or the Manchester scene. So I'm curious your take on why you think like we're starting to see so many of these bands take more electronic music influence in their
I
sound.
think
And
there's a few things. I think just like in general, culture has become more like there's just like more crossover between everything all the time. Like
mhm.
just the way like the internet works. I mean, like gajillions of people have made this point, but just like there's everything feels really like there's just more fluidity. Like things aren't as like
Mhm.
regimented, and like there's not these like sects of like, oh, this is this, and so you can't do this, and there's less of like a preciousness about like mixing things, I think, than they're like aesthetically like and like the like ideas like I don't know. So I think there's that, and then I think it's just it's really really easy to make electronic music now if you just have a laptop.
Yeah.
There's not so. And then I think artists tend to get bored with what they're doing, and so there's now just like this. If you're a rock and roller who happens to have owned a laptop, as soon as you get bored, you can just try this other thing, and it's like really easy to get into. And there's tons of like YouTube videos and shit. So I think like 20 years ago, the barrier to entry to like, oh, I like love the Strokes. It's really hard to start making dance music, I think, because you have to like buy a few things, and now you don't have to really buy anything. You could just do it on the thing you like send emails with.
Yeah. Because I think that was like the with Harp, like he just like I think like during the pandemic he just didn't have his guitar and it's like, well, I've always had this love for this genre. Let's just fucking go for it and see
Yeah,
how it works.
yeah, totally.
Um, I guess to get back to pure music, I want to like a quick clarification. Did you guys record pure music and No Light Heaven like at the same time, or was it sort of like separate sessions that it came together?
A lot of it, a lot of like the skeletons of things were made at the same time, probably most of them, and then we
Gotcha,
like fleshed stuff out at different times.
gotcha. Yeah,
So we
because
like
I
finished No Light in Heaven and basically had a bunch of demos for pure music that we had made at the same time.
gotcha.
And we had kind of been like, okay, this is going to be this is going to be this. And then over the next year or so, we then finished pure music after No Light in Heaven had been released.
Yeah. So was this all like in the same? Because I'm trying to remember like the press release. Like you guys recorded this like in a cabin in the winter in like upstate New York.
Yeah,
It's just very funny, like that imagery of
it
like,
actually
oh
wasn't a
hey,
cabin; it was a house.
oh, okay, gotcha.
But yeah, but
It's
kind of
just
cabin type feel.
yeah, it's just very funny to think like, okay, this record that's like very inspired by like electronic dance music and sort of like sort of this like living in the moment, this like live experience was like written in this like very remote place in the dead of winter where we're like
Yeah,
isolated inside. Like when you think of
yeah,
like sort of like a cabin type house in the winter, like upstate, you're thinking like fucking Bon Iver, like
totally.
forever ago. So
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
What was it sort of like? Was it like tough at all to kind of like keep going in this direction, even with like did the elements change how you were approaching the way you guys were recording like the demos or just the music in general, or was it sort of like, hey, we're just going like head first, we got to get this done?
Well, I think like the isolation, just like you can't really go anywhere. Like I don't even know what the town looked like that we were like next to. Like I never left, you know. So I
Mhm.
think that you kind of go into this cabin fever mode. And we were also like, I don't know, we were like doing like tons of Adderall and stuff, and just like we were like staying up all night basically. So, um, yeah, I mean, I think that I don't think like the I mean, I don't know. I love like pastoral kind of aesthetics too, so maybe that crept in a little bit, but
Mhm.
I think just more the isolation and the kind of like manic, like we're trapped and we're making this like weird record basically. I think that, that's what it was.
Yeah. Um, I guess sort of when you guys were making this record, like, was there like any records, artists, films that were just sort of like guiding lights for the direction you wanted to take on the record?
Oh yeah, for sure. Definitely like movies were huge. I think they always are. Um, just like I love Terrence Malick. Um, I love the movie Slacker, that Linklater movie.
Yeah.
If you've seen that,
I've not
I
seen
think I.
Slacker, but rest in peace to
Oh,
the
dude.
Butthole Surfers drummer. That's like a big prominent person in that movie.
Oh, damn. You should see Slacker. It's like one of the best movies ever, honestly.
I have not really checked out a lot of Linklater. I feel
Oh,
like
have
I
you seen
was.
the? What have you seen?
I've probably seen School of Rock. I think I saw a
That
little bit of
movie's great.
Bernie. Never
That's
saw
not.
Boyhood or Slacker or anything like
Boyhood
that.
is like pretty good. Definitely. Have you seen the Before trilogy?
No, but but I feel like
Dude,
I'm like I know that if I watched those movies, it would like destroy me emotionally.
Yeah.
Like I would
Watch
have to be.
Before Sunrise. That one is like really just the first one is just like it's the most like romantic, beautiful. It's like every, fantasy you've ever had. It's so good.
Exactly, which is why I'm so so afraid to
Yeah.
watch it, because it's
Yeah.
just like, man, this is just gonna destroy me emotionally if I
Yeah.
ever
But those
watch
things do
these.
happen sometimes,
Yeah,
That'll probably happen to you, probably has someone.
I mean,
Um,
to an extent. I mean, that's like
mhm.
knowing the basic premise of like those movies. It's like, yeah, no,
Yeah.
I've definitely been through times where like very similar things have
People do
happened.
just fall in love.
Yeah.
But that movie's awesome. But Slacker is the biggest one for me. Just the structure of it and the just sort of feeling of it. Um, I don't know. It just has this kind of like ambling. Everything is sort of connected in ways that you can't quite articulate. It feels like kind of spiritual in that way, where it's just like I don't really know what this is, but it feels right. I don't know. And then like I like um some things are like they feel like an influence like retroactively, like more
Hmm.
like because we finished it and I always loved the movie Lost Highway, but then I went and saw it at this theater called the Roxy with my friend, and seeing that movie, I was like, this is exactly what I value about art, basically. And I think that I associate the album with Lost Highway, even though it wasn't a direct influence, just something about the feelings of it feel connected to me. I don't know.
Hmm.
Have
Yeah.
you seen that?
I I've not seen Lost Highway. I think because
Dude,
it's just
what?
it's
That's
hard it's hard to find. Like you have to,
what movies do you like?
I mean, I do love like a lot of other like Lynch stuff. Like I love the entire Twin Peaks, like seasons
Yeah,
1, 2, Fire Walk with Me, The Return. Like I think it's like some of the best.
I've only
Like
seen 1.5 seasons. I need to like finish that because my friends all love that stuff.
I will say, season 2 is gets rough at certain points. Like once they solve like the central mystery of the show, it gets kind of rough at points. They do find their way back into it towards the end, but
Yeah.
like you just gotta be ready for like it's gonna get rough at certain points. Like you're gonna be like what
Okay.
is going on? But like but having watched it over a couple of times now, like I appreciate season 2 more. Like okay, like some
Cool.
of this is
Yeah,
just
I need
like,
to do that.
but then like Fire Walk with Me is just like one of the best movies ever made. Like
Yeah, I've never seen that. Yeah.
I watched it on at the Los Feliz 3 like a couple months ago on film, and like I already loved that movie before, but like it just profoundly like affected me because I was going through my Twin Peaks rewatch at the time, and then like that and The Return. The Return is also just like one of those
The
like
Return seems so cool. Yeah.
The Return is incredible. It is like you got to be all in on Lynch to enjoy it. Like you have to be like
Yeah.
all in on like his weird intricacies and like the way he's directing these scenes. Like, but if you're like totally locked in, it's just it's incredible stuff. Especially like episode
Yeah.
8, which you've probably like episode 8 is like one of the most like, especially with Oppenheimer coming out. Like it's episode 8 is like that's one of the most crowning achievements, not just in like television history, just like in film history. Like that being
Damn.
pulled
Okay.
off.
I gotta do this. It's just a huge commitment. I'm like so like I feel like TV is tough. Like it's such
It's
a
tough.
time commitment, but I think it's like that's a show that I'm like I would totally like commit
Yeah,
to that.
it's worth it all the way. But like I love a lot of other Lynch stuff. I fucking love the Jackass movies. I literally my
Yeah, me too.
letterbox top 4 is just the Jackass movies. It's kind of a joke, but
Yeah.
like
I thought the new one wasn't quite up to par,
I
but
see. I
still
love
liked
Forever.
it. I still liked it.
I love Forever.
I still liked it.
But I get it. Like I think like if you're more into like 2 than 4, like
I like
love
3.
I love 3. I would say 3 is like on
3, the vibes are great.
the vibes are great. Like, hey, like everyone, for the most part is sober. Like,
Yeah.
everyone's just sort of like having fun. Like we have all these ideas from like the 3D cameras. Like, let's just fucking, shoot this shit. And like even there's stuff in like 3.5 where I'm like, how did this not make like the movie? Like the basketball nut
Yeah.
shots. How did that not make
I
the final
haven't.
cut?
I feel like I haven't seen 3.5 in years, but I need to.
3.5.
I should do a Jackass rewatch. I have like my friend Emma's like obsessed with Jackass. We should do a whole thing.
It's completely joyous. Like I rewatched them all. There's like this like movie club in LA, secret movie club, where they show stuff on film, and I watched like 1 and 2 and 3D on film, which is just like absurd because again, these are all like digital movies. Like these were all filmed with like first one's like at the time like cutting edge digital cameras, but like they're so shitty, and it was just like absurd to see them like, oh, here it is on film, like what the fuck. I love Jackass movies.
That's cool.
I mean, I feel like this like in terms of like the aesthetics, like Moonlight. I love Moonlight. I feel like it actually ties in really well with like Pure Music, like sort of that very like neon sort of city vibe, but it's sort of like the way that I described the pendant record harp, and I think the same description I would give like this record, where in terms of like the time and place it's set in is like somewhere between like dusk and dawn. It's super fucking late at night. You can't fall asleep, but like you're up and you're just sort of like, it feels like you're in a dream, even though you're fully awake and aware. And I think like Moonlight, like some of the best stuff in there is like very reminiscent of that, where it's like at certain times just feels like a bad dream that you can't wake up from, but it's not like
Have
absurd.
you seen Light Sleeper?
No. What's that?
Watch that. It's a Paul Schrader movie with Willem Dafoe and Susan Sarandon from like probably like 92, I want to say.
Okay.
It's so good. The music is crazy. The music is like this like really schmaltzy. It's like this guy who just like wrote a bunch of like weird songs, and it's this really like maximalist like almost like Blue Nile-y rock music with like vocals over a bunch. It's so weird. And the movie is awesome. Susan Sarandon is like so hot, and like Willem Dafoe is awesome. Like it's such a good movie.
There's a ton of Schrader stuff I need to like start getting in. Like I love First Reformed, but like
I
haven't checked out any of his stuff. Like but there's tons of stuff that I should probably like.
I just saw his first movie the other night. There's a screening Blue Collar.
Oh yeah.
Interesting. It was pretty good, but it's interesting because like his movies, the like format is so established, right? It's like this guy like drinking and writing in his diary like by himself, and then he like goes out and like the things he does are kind of sort of in communication with like these like other scenes where he's like writing and like angry and drinking. And this movie like is just a normal movie basically, and there was none of that. So it's cool seeing his like before he figured out what his thing was.
Yeah. I mean, I just had to pull up my letterbox just because I have like horrible memory and shit. Oh my god, one of the most underrated movies of the past 10 years, The Beach Bum Harmony
Dude, I
Korine.
want to see that. Because I mean, Spring Breakers is one of my favorite movies ever. Um, and I have not seen Beach Bum somehow.
The Beach Bum is like, first off, get as high as you possibly fucking can before you see that movie. Like, I'm not a weed smoker, but like, I wish like the next time I see that movie, I need to get like as violently high as possible because it's just like it's such a like Spring Breakers is like very nihilistic. Like Beach Bum is just a good time. Like
Okay, cool.
it's just a good time. Like incredible needle drops. Like Matthew McConaughey
Is it
is
Matthew
just
McConaughey? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he's fully committed. Like he's
Great.
just having a great time. Like unlike some of the other Korean movies where you're like, okay, I feel like these characters are having a really bad time. This is the movie like, okay, a character like he goes through some hardships, but like it's just having a great time overall. Zac Efron gives like the best performance he's ever given as like
Cool.
as a guy he meets in rehab who's a big fan of Creed and wears Jinko jeans. It's incredible.
Yeah, I need to see that.
Um, fucking oh god, a movie that I saw in theaters last year for the first time. Hackers 1995, Angelina
That's a
Jolie.
cool movie. Yeah.
Hackers is just like it's a movie like oh haha like so bad it's good and then like it is but like it isn't like
It's pretty. It's kind of awesome.
it's
Yeah.
fucking awesome. The
Everybody's
soundtrack
like
is
really
incredible.
sexy. Like, yeah, the soundtrack's amazing. I love that the guy from Trainspotting is in it too.
Yeah,
He's like awesome.
he's giving like one of the worst American accents I've ever heard in my entire life, but I don't
Yeah,
even care because it's just
cool.
it's
They got
incredible.
married too. He and Angelina.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that they're still on like good terms and shit too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think so.
shouts out.
Yeah.
Let me see. Yeah, because I'm just like going through like my letterbox. I mean, there's obvious stuff like obviously Uncut Gems. I think I saw that like 3 times in theaters. Like that's incredible. Lighthouse, Parasite, Goodfellas, the usual stuff.
Do you
A
see
movie?
After Sun?
No, I've been meaning to because
That's
I
the
heard
best
Aftersun's
new
incredible.
movie I've seen in years.
Yeah, because I got really
So good.
behind a new movie. Like in like 2019, 2020, I was getting like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna go to the theater more often, go see more like art house stuff and more like I like saw Pain and Glory and I was really emotionally affected by that. Pedro Almodovar, and then obviously pandemic happened and like I just like it became tougher for me to like want to go out and go see movies. Like even moving to
Sure.
LA, like it got tough because just like,
Dude.
well, oh go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. I'm so bad at interrupting. Um, I was just gonna say, if you're in LA, you should see this movie Dogleg when it screens. This dude
Oh,
Al Warren made it. It's like no budget, basically. He just like made it with his friends, basically. And I just saw a screening of it in New York, and it was so good. It
yeah,
kind
because
of
I
has a slacker feel, but it's really different. It's like very kind of unselfconsciously beautiful in this way that doesn't really square with other aspects of the movie. It's really interesting and really good.
yeah, because I think yeah, because you
Dogleg.
guys were talking about that in the Reddit AMA, like
Oh, were
mentioning
we?
that.
Yeah.
I think one of you guys mentioned it.
Yeah, I probably did.
Let me see if there's like any showtimes near me.
It's
And
not like it doesn't have a wide release. You just have to
oh,
like
okay,
I'm
gotcha.
sure he'll screen it soon because he just did a
Yeah,
screening
yeah,
here.
yeah.
I think he did a screening in Austin. I'm just saying, look him up, Al Warren, when he does the screening in LA. I would recommend you see it.
Gotcha. Well then, I guess I got back to the pure
Back
music.
to the music.
I mean, so just I going over a couple of tracks because I feel like with this record, it's tough talking about the individual tracks because it all bleeds into each other like so well, where it
Yeah,
really does feel like one collective whole.
that's
Um,
awesome.
I mean, Rain So Hard, if this is too personal a question, just feel free, don't even answer it because obviously like the press release mentioned that like it was written when you and Fiona were together, you guys broke up and sort of like kind of coming back together in a sense to kind of pick apart the pieces of the relationship. So I guess that kind of leads, is it tough at all kind of being in a band with like your ex partner or is it just,
Yeah, definitely. It definitely is really tough at times. It's also like great, genuinely. Like we do just really love each other and love making music together, and we have a lot of similar ideas about how things ought to be. So it always feels worth it, And it's definitely just like weird playing these songs that are so clearly about you know us breaking up. But we were together when I wrote them. So I don't know. It's a trip, you know. You
Hmm.
get sometimes it will just like hit that just how wild it is. But I'm always glad we're doing it, and I think she feels the same way.
Hmm. So Pure Music, you're saying on the record, it's your guys' Rumors by Fleetwood Mac.
But it's not right because it's not. That's so like that. That the Fleetwood Mac thing feels so like gossipy and like,
Oh yeah.
oh, like you fucked this guy, like I wrote this song, like blah blah blah. Like I maybe it's not, like, but that's how I think about
I
that.
mean, no, you're not wrong.
I don't know that much about that band, but it seems like very kind of messy and like about like jealousy, and that's so not what this is about to me.
oh yeah, no. It's just like it's just sort of the cliched record of like, oh, like this is a record made by people that were all breaking up with each other at the same time, and
Yeah,
yet,
yeah. No,
like,
I think yeah. This it just feels like just for just about like kind of loss, you know, and a relationship is sort of one of the main ways you experience loss before your parents die.
hmm yeah, because I mean, especially like this record, like as I was like listening to it, it was sort of like I was also like reconnecting with like an ex girlfriend and like becoming friends
Mhm.
again. And I feel like this record kind of hit at a really good time as like we were sort of exploring like, okay, like what does our relationship look like now as like friends, or like after the
Yeah,
relationship, like how do we view each other? So I think the
totally.
record is really like really hits on that really well, where it's like you still love this person a lot, but like just something isn't clicking and working out. So like obviously, like I said,
Yeah,
for one, as a fan of the band, I'm glad you guys are still were able to make it work
yeah,
and are still
yeah.
together.
Of course.
And I think like music in some ways can be a really healthy way to like work through those feelings and
Yeah, I
kind
mean, I
of.
don't think because I never we dated for so long, and I was like, I always felt like if we broke up, like we're not that's it. You know, I didn't think I was capable of what we're doing now, basically, and
Hmm.
like I feel really like grateful um that we do make music together because I think it enabled me to be uh a lot like just like a way like less like dumb person basically in how I've conducted myself with Fiona and I. So
Hmm.
yeah,
One of my favorite songs on the record, the third single, "Way Out," like that is just like an incredible track. And
thank
I
you.
feel like one of the best things this record does is like this is a very nostalgic record, but it's not one that gets so stuck in it that it sounds, like it's just trying to repeat the past, or like it simultaneously is very nostalgic, but also feels like out of time, and like.
That's like the nicest thing you could say about anything I make. That's like exactly uh how I want things to feel.
Yeah, and I think like
Thank
Way
you.
Out is like one of the best, like like if I had to pick a track that like has that feeling the best, it is that. Obviously, like the number one, it mentions a mall, which who the fuck is going to the mall anymore? But like just this general feeling of like life passing you by and wanting to feel nostalgic about it, but also being like you can't get stuck in that because it's just
Yeah,
it's a trap.
totally.
So so I guess I'm just doing like your creative process about that song, 'cause it kind of feels like one of the more, because it feels like one of the more personal ones on the record to you. At least I
Yeah,
got that feeling.
yeah, 100%. It was about something like really specific. At least the kind of like beginning of it. You know, that song is actually interesting because not that I was like a huge. I mean, I okay, like I like a lot of Silver Jews. Like I
Hmm.
think like the lyrics are really amazing, but I never got obsessed with them. But after David Berman died, I was like reading a lot of his writing and was just really sort of awed by how just like incredible of just a writer he is. He's so good. Um, his songs, the lyrics are amazing. His poems are amazing. Like he wrote this kind of essay thing for his label one time about I don't know. I'll try to find it and send it to you, but it's so fucking good. But anyway, after he died, I was just like going through all his shit. And like again, they're not like a huge like seminal band for me or anything, but I was just like reading a bunch of his stuff and I was like, damn, I need to make better lyrics basically. And so that song was like the song that I wrote after that where I was just like, I need to like this has to be like a lot better.
Yeah, because I think like with that in Berman, like he knows to use just enough specific details to kind of put you in a place, but he's not going to he's not trying to dumb it down or like, okay, I'm going to describe literally everything in the room. Like I'm going to give you a couple key phrases and a couple
Yeah.
of things that kind of, you can put yourself in there and kind of, let your imagination do the rest.
And but it also feels like novels. Like
Yeah.
the level of writing is just so much. It's so far beyond like most just like rock singers. Um, he is just so fluent with language, and the stuff he's able to communicate is like he's so funny, but not in a way
Hmm.
that feels like cheap at all.
Yeah.
It just like hits you emotionally.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah, because I was, like at the time, like before he died, like I was getting really into the Purple Mountains album that had just come
yeah,
out. Like we
that was
like did
good.
an AMA with him on Indie Heads on the subreddit, and it was a great AMA. And it was like I was gonna go see him on tour, and obviously with that hit, and like it just made that record so much more like poignant. Of
Yeah,
like,
it's pretty fucked up listening to it now.
because it is like at times a very funny record. Like Margaritas at the Mall is kind of funny, and then God, what was one of the singles on that record that I think that's about sort of like whenever him and his wife had broken up, and she was going and seeing other
Oh,
people.
I'm like you're single. I'm growing stranger or something. Is that the
Yeah. Oh,
one?
she's making friends. I'm turning stranger,
I'm turning stranger. Yeah,
and it's just
yeah,
like being able to sort of like be sad about that, but also like being very mature, being like, look, I
yeah.
had my chance. It is what it is.
Do you know the song "Sleeping Is the Only Love"? It's not on that record. It's an older. It's like in a period of their discography that I feel people don't really like listen to that much, but because a lot of their stuff just like isn't like melodic enough for me to be really into, but
Mhm.
sometimes it still just like really hits, obviously. And sleeping is young love is such a good song.
I
I
have not,
recommend
yeah,
you
because
check it
I've
out.
not dove in like too deep into the Silver
Hmm.
Jews discography. Like I listened to, like I think the Natural Bridge is a really good record. American Water is really good.
Yeah,
But like I never got into Tanglewood, so I will definitely listen to that
maybe
track.
that's on that one. I don't know, but it's good.
Um, Also, I think this is sort of like as a nerd about this shit about like album sequencing. I love that Pure Music has two outros essentially, where like Fantasy could be a great outro for the record, like when I listen to it, I'm like, oh, that's the end of the record, and then it obviously goes into Days in the Shallows, where it feels like, oh, okay, this is the epilogue, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
I always like that. It's funny because I didn't because like I feel like the best album closer or the stuff that always like hit the most for me was like Lunch Cutter West, like it closes with styrofoam boots, you know,
mhm.
which is not. Do you know that record that well?
Not
If you don't,
really.
that's totally fine. Okay, cool. That's like I mean, that's like just like the best record ever. So you should check it out. But it doesn't. There are so many like epic, like just super like anthemic, like emotional songs in the album, and it closes on this like weird, like shuffly, like folk song, and it's just such a strange move. But it really it influenced like every time I think about like what the last song on the record is. I think that that choice they made on that record is like what I'm always going for until this new stuff. So it's because it's funny that you're saying that still basically did that, without intending to. Because I was like, no, let's end it different. Let's end it with a bang this time. But it does still feel like an epilogue or like a coda, which is cool because that's most of most of that's usually kind of what I want. But yeah, that's fine.
Because it feels like No Light in Heaven has like a good like okay, like this is like a
That
big
does have
bang
a more
ending,
traditional, yeah, and
and this is like again, I did not want to. No, no means it's like I said. I love the fact that like it's a record with like two outros where it sort of feels like you have this like okay, like things are ending here, and I like that like okay, like no, like because it's just how life is. Like life doesn't always have like a perfect natural ending. Like
totally,
things go on, and that's
yeah,
what I love about Days in the Shallows, where it's like, hey, things still go on. Like you
yeah.
know, we thought we gave you this perfect ending. And like, hey, no, things are still going on. Like
Thanks, that's cool.
the
Also,
story
10
isn't over.
songs is there's something nice about 10 songs.
I mean,
It
one of my
reminds
favorite
me of
albums of
home.
all time, barring the creator now at this point. I mean, Yeezus is one of my favorite
Yeah.
records of all
Oh my
time.
God. Yeah.
10
You know
songs, like,
what? You know what I'll say too is like before I got into like quote like electronic music, I was obsessed. Like we were all like obsessed with Yeezus.
Yeah,
That was,
same.
and just Kanye in general.
Same.
Um,
I grew up on
like,
hip hop
but
forums,
that,
so like,
yeah, that album and honestly Pablo, like Yeezus is just, that's just one of the best. Me and my friends were making top 10 lists the other day of like movies, and which I don't usually do, but we were just doing it for fun. And like, and I was like, damn, yeah, Yeezus is definitely on there. That album is so, it hits like, I'm talk about final songs, dude. Like
yeah,
and that song's crazy too, because when that shit came out, like I had no frame of reference for it, and I was just like, what the fuck? Like, I can't believe he did this. Like, what is this? And then just time proved him right, like more than, you know, that song just stands alone. It's like that is the best fucking song, and the music video is so crazy and cool.
yeah.
That whole record though, I mean, On Site is just like the best album opener ever. It hits so hard, but if you listen to it, it's not actually hitting. Like the drums are so like not in your face. I mean, there's like an 808, but
yeah. But it's really just like
hi hats. There's these kind of like noise hi hats.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Yeezus was like, I mean, that's like absolutely one of the primary influences on everything we've been doing, like without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, because it just turned 10 like last month, and like re-listening to it being like God, because you know, after everything with Kanye, you're like, you know what, like with like most other artists, it's pretty easy to just like if something bad happens, like it's pretty easy to just drop them from my listening habits. Like,
he is a genius. I mean, I'm saying this with my Star of David on right now, just for people that don't have the video, but he is a genius. Like, he's one of the greatest artists of all time. Like, I think like, and you can't pretend that that's not true. And it's insane. It's totally insane when people try to be like, oh, he's such a like denigrating his art as if that has anything to do with, I don't know. It's just like he's like one of the most important musicians of our lifetimes, and like, I don't know, nothing's gonna take that away.
Yeah, like if you know, I compartmentalize that in so many different ways. Like, I think it's just like the guy that made Yeezus, like he's like that's not him. Like that is a completely different person. I think it is and it isn't.
Yeah,
like no, I mean, that album is
like the work of a psycho, you know, which is like, why it's so amazing.
Like that's how I have to like, it's like, I know it's the same guy, like I know exactly, like I completely understand like how you go from this to like where he's at now, you know, like, but
and I think he could come back. Like, there's moments on the new stuff that I think is good too. Like, I just don't know the new stuff as well because it just feels a little blander, but like there's still good moments, and I think that I still think he could make another just like banger record.
Like I don't doubt that,
because I think he's just being enabled by his whole like insane crew. I mean, because he's so powerful. Like, when there's there's no pushback from anybody ever, except for like the internet, which like obviously he's gonna feel is his enemy. So he needs to have people who are being like, no, you need to like focus and like actually take this seriously, and like this part of the song doesn't work, so like do something better. But there's nobody above him that can provide that for him. So I don't know.
And I think that's why Yeezus is so good, because you had like, at least, you know, like Rick Rubin at like the 11th hour being like, hey, no, take this out, get this out of here.
I think
like,
one of the coolest like questions in music is like, what was that like 3.5 hour cut of Yeezus? Like, it's crazy that there's literally 3 hours of music that was cut from Yeezus that we don't know what it sounds like. And I'm just like, what was that?
Yeah, no, I want it. Like, that is like holy grail material. Like, I want to hear what these sessions, I want to hear everything. Like, I want to hear, totally. I think one day, like, I think we'll probably get like a whole box set, like a fucking, you know, Smile Sessions, Pet Sounds kind of box set, where it's like, hey, here's everything. Like, here's all the sessions. Yeah. And like, even there's stuff that's still like from those sessions that's still like the Travis Scott record. Like, one of the songs on there is literally like, oh, that's like the original beat for I Am a God. Like, he just reused it.
Oh, really? That's so cool. Which song?
I can't remember what song it is, but I think it's like one of the songs on there. I haven't listened to the whole thing.
I've listened to I really liked the first song. I thought it was so cool. And then the other ones I heard I wasn't as into, but it seems like there's probably some cool stuff in there.
Yeah, because like obviously you know, I love that record from the beginning. Like, that record was, you know, because I was at the time, like, I was getting like super into Death Grips. So like that record was like totally up my alley. Like one of my other favorite artists of all time, kind of going in this more industrial electronic direction.
Yeah.
let's do it, let's go. Because obviously, like, you know, the whole discourse being like, oh, he's just ripping off Death Grips, and it's like, who the fuck is making music like Death Grips? Like, I want more
totally.
stuff
And
that sounds like that.
He is ripping off Death Grips, but like it's Kanye. And so it's always going to be Kanye. Like,
Yeah.
Death Grips would not make like, I love,
No.
like, Death Grips is amazing. Like, in many ways, like, I like them almost as much as Yeezus, but like, Yeezus is like a pop album in a way that Kanye can do, you know, and
Yeah.
so, yeah.
It's also like, you have to remember, like, who's doing production on that record. Like I understand when people are like, oh, it's a total ripoff, and it's like, it is and it isn't. It's like, you got Arca, you got Daft Punk, you got
Death Grips would never make Bound 2.
No, they would never make Bound 2.
And full respect to Death Grips, like one of the best bands of like the last 20 years. But
Just
like,
saw
they're
them
not going
live.
to make,
They're fucking incredible.
Yeah, that's awesome. But they're not going to make Bound 2.
No,
that's just not what they do.
And like,
but that is what Kanye does.
Yeah, and Kanye, like, what I love about Yeezus, and I think like the position that I've held in that record is that, like, it feels like the most honest Kanye album. Like, here is Kanye unfiltered, at least at the time, like, unfiltered. Like, this is what being in his brain is. Where I feel like,
yeah,
Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy was like, okay, I'm gonna like clean up some things, like, kind of.
I really don't like that one that much.
It's overrated.
Yeah.
I get, you know, why people freaked out about it at the time, but like, it
really didn't age well.
I would fully agree. Like, it's just, it's not, to me, like, it is not an honest record. Like, it is Kanye doing Damage Control for like the last, you know, the VMAs incident and like other shit that was going on at the time. Whereas Yeezus, it's like, I'm not doing Damage Control. Like, this is me. Like, this is like, I am a fucking asshole. Like, I am a god. Like, that's how I view myself.
I know, it's so fucking cool. Like, I love Pablo too. I think that is, I don't think it's like, it's not as concise as Yeezus, but like, I think the highs are like just as high.
I would fully, like, I think like Pablo, it's inconsistent, but like when it's on, like I was listening to
Real Friends.
I was listening
that song is just incredible.
I was just in the grocery store and I was listening to Father Stretch My Hands Part 1 and 2, and I'm like,
oh, yeah, dude.
Like, like
Waves. I just got chills thinking about Waves. That song is so. That is such a beautiful song.
Like, I mean,
30 Hours Arthur Russell sample. That's crazy. I didn't even know who Arthur Russell was when that happened.
See, I was getting like, I had been into Arthur Russell for like a year or two when that song came out, and I was like fucking soy facing, like, holy shit, he's sampling Arthur Russell. Like, what the fuck? Like,
that's such a good song.
How the fuck does he know about Arthur Russell? FML is like, that's one of the most underrated Kanye
Which one
tracks.
Is that?
It's the one with The Weeknd that has the fucking post-punk sample.
No, mention me.
It has like great like post-punk sample at the end. That's just like, oh my, like, FML is underrated as fuck. Like, so with Pablo in particular, this is we're going way off the rails. I don't give a shit. Like, I want to keep talking about.
Yeah,
I love Pablo so much. Do you like it? For me, like with Pablo, like, it's the first version. Like, I don't, anything else after that's like, there's maybe some things like on the like other.
I don't
versions.
even know the difference. Like, what's on Spotify now? It's like some other version.
So like the whole like caveat with that record was like, okay, I'm gonna put it out, but like I'm gonna keep working on it after it's out and like add new things and like sort of rework certain things. There's
so
some
you
stuff,
have the OG version though?
I have the first version.
How do you listen to it? Like, on what?
I have it on iTunes. Like, I just got it downloaded from like way back in the day. It's on iTunes. If you want it, I will send it to you happily.
Yeah, I'd be very curious. So is it a lot different?
It is, like, it's not that much. Like, most of the changes
Wolves
that he made,
different, right? He's
Wolves
like,
is a little different. The big one for me is Feedback, because I think like the new version of Feedback is like, it's not like on the original version there is like this like nasty synth bass that comes in at like the perfect time, like it's just like this perfect drop, and for some reason on the new version he like got rid of that, and the song sounds like so much
identity
weaker.
You're probably right, but I like that, like, the identity of that record is that it was this fluid thing and it was just sort of like hostage to his like psychotic like wants to like be changing things all the time. And like, I think that's so cool that a record's identity is like, this is plastic, like I can change it, you know, because that just so subverts how you think about art in general. It's like, I released this art, it's done, now you can experience it if it's like a movie or book or whatever. And he's like, this record is going to change like as much, like this is not it. Again, bajillions of people have said that already, but it is cool. I think
think
that's
on
really
paper it's a
interesting.
great concept, and I think in some ways it works. Like there's definitely some songs that got improved over time, but then like I think like with music in particular, like once you like really attach yourself to it, it's really hard to let that feeling go. So like when something is a
Yeah, but
little
like
different,
I totally agree with you, but
yeah.
like, and I like in on a sort of like day to day like the experience as a listener, yes, but it's like I think the reason we like art is so much bigger than that. It's like people were so mad at Frank Ocean about that stuff. It's like to me, it's like the reason you that Frank Ocean matters is because he's not just going to do what you want him to. He's going to do what he wants to do, which is different from what everybody else wants him to do. And so like if he just like did a crowd pleasing set, it'd be fine. But it's like it's so much more in if you think about like the sort of like his career, like what Frank
Hmm.
Ocean means culturally, like to do something like that ultimately enhances the whole picture of what he is. And so like Kanye, if he makes, V6 of Pablo and it's a little bit worse, it's like I as a listener, I will accept that because I like that he is doing this at all. That he is like subverting your expectation, and that's why we love Kanye, because he's making these moves that are outside of just like, oh, I made this good song, you should hear it. He's thinking on this like other level. And I think it's interesting when like audiences don't understand why they love these artists. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, I don't know.
No, I'm in
What
total
do
agreement
you
with
think about
like
that?
especially the Frank stuff where like obviously like hearing about that set and it's like you can have many different takes on it, but it's like if he just did a crowd pleasing set that would not be honest to him as an artist, like you've been not paying attention to his entire career. Like that's not what he would do. Like
And it like sucks. Like people spent money, kids came in. Like that's all sucks. But it's like there are just like they're just bigger considerations when you're Frank Ocean and you're one of the most important artists of all time. I don't know.
I yeah, totally agreed. So so are we gonna get version 2 of Pure Music in like 5 months then?
Definitely not. It's done. I would kill myself if I had to open up if I had to go through the stems. So no way.
I guess that sort of like I guess that, I mean, but but that's the magic of live music. It's like it's what bands have been doing forever. Where like things like these songs, like jam bands are the biggest example, but like it's really a lot of bands where like these things like shift and form live. Like that's where these songs can
Definitely.
kind of change. Where it's like, hey, you have this recorded version, but like, hey, as we're playing this live, we have to figure out like, hey, this isn't going to translate as well, so let's try this instead.
Totally.
So I guess that leads into, are you guys excited for the live shows coming up? You've got 2 release shows. I think
Yeah,
those will
definitely.
have happened by the time this podcast is out, but you do have the whole tour that's
Yeah,
going on
yeah, we're
later.
going
And
on tour. Everybody should come. It'll be pretty good, I think. But yeah, I am excited, honestly. I like am curious to see like who comes, like what they, because I just feel like our audience has turned over so much. Like I don't
Mhm.
know who are the people that like us now. So it's always interesting to like see what people's frame of reference is for like if or why they like it or what they think it sounds like or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, all
but I'm
right.
excited.
I think we'll call it there. Isaac, thank you so much for coming on the pod. If you
Yeah,
want to go
yeah.
see Strange Ranger live, I will be posting in the description tour dates, so you can see all their coming dates. Go see them on tour. I'm going to be seeing them and seeing you guys in St. Louis. Very excited. I'm
Oh no
actually
shit! I didn't even remember. So where I didn't even know we were playing there. I
yeah.
didn't remember. I like
I'm
St. Louis
based
a lot.
Yeah, I'm based in LA right now, but I'm moving back home, like near St. Louis,
Okay,
like at the end
cool.
of the month. So, like, that's like my first show coming back to the area. So, really
Awesome.
excited for that.
St. Louis is a good city.
I love St. Louis. It's a fucking it's an underrated city. I get why bands don't play it very often because people got their shit stolen there a lot, but I don't think it happens as much these days. So,
Cool.
fingers are crossed. Fingers are crossed for you guys. But yeah, thank you, Isaac. Go listen to Pure
Yeah,
Music. It's a
thanks so
great
much,
record.
Matty.
And
Thank you.
go listen to Yeezus also. Yeezus it holds up.
It's a better record, if I'm being honest.
Look, we appreciate the honesty. So thank you guys
Yeah.
for listening. We will see you all very soon. Bye bye.